I really want to talk about faces. It's going to get emotional. Hi, thanks for clicking. This is the first in a series of videos analysing the theory of constructed emotion. As described in this book by Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett. While Barrett set out to solve what is known as the paradox of emotion, which I believe she does, the wider implications of her research are honestly just... Today I want to explore what some of Barrett's work could mean for the autistic community as well as everyone else. As you may know, I was very recently diagnosed as autistic, and a well-known trait of autism is the supposed inability to be able to understand or even exhibit facial expressions correctly. You know, the old stereotypical trope, you can think of, say, Sheldon Cooper staring down the barrel of an absolutely furious face and just blithely asking, "You're mad, aren't you?" Well, I'm here today to say that autistic people are perfectly right to be confused by facial expressions, thank you very much, and that it's everyone else who just think they know what the faces mean when actually they don't. Kind of. Part 1. What's a face for? The seminal work on the study of facial expressions and emotion comes from the evolution chief himself, Mr. Chazzy. Oh, Charlie Dar, Darwin. In the third part of the Evolution Theory Trilogy, dun, 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 dun. The expression of emotion in men and animals, Darwin studied a series of common emotions and how they are expressed in both people and animals. He studied quite a wide variety of emotions, and his analysis came from his own observation, reports from zoologists and mates of his what work in institutions, and, well, a bunch of colonisers. Side fact, it was one of the first books ever to be illustrated with photographs. So there's that. You see, before old Chazzy, sorry, I did say I'd stop that, before Darwin, it was commonly held that our propensity for emotion is uniquely human, and that therefore 'tis evident that we have been bestowed upon with God-given attributes. But Darwin was having none of that, thank you. His entire jam being evolution and empirical research, and that it's genetics and biology what'll tell us why we are the way we are. No more of this in his image malark for Dars. No thank you. So I'll not outline the whole book here because it's pretty long and I didn't read it all. But in essence, Darwin concludes that the emotions which he studied are universal. That means that no matter where you go in the world, you'll see the same expressions for emotions. You'll see the same faces being made for the same reasons. These inbuilt, essential expressions for emotion, he said, are grounded in genetics and survival. I'll just read a small segment to illustrate the point on genetics. Considering all the circumstances with reference to these children shrugging their shoulders, it can hardly be doubted that they have inherited the habit from their French progenitors. Although they have only 1/4 French blood in their veins, and although their grandfather did not often shrug his shoulders. There's also this properly Victorian part where he talks about the tendency of the insane to have messy hair, and how this correlates with the fact that animals' fur bristles when they get agitated. So there's also quite a lot of anthropomorphism. But this idea of universal expressions for emotion took off in a big way. I'll bet if you think about it now, you likely assumed that that was the case. I mean, after all, how can autistic people be bad at recognizing and exhibiting facial expressions if there's no right way to do it?
Part 2. A paradox.
So in the 60s, teams of researchers designed series of photographs with which they would test people's facial expression recognition. Photographs of your common emotions and the expressions which are thought to correlate with them. One of the most famous studies of this nature was when Paul Ekman and his team travelled to visit the Foray people in Papua New Guinea. This is a tribe who had only minimal contact with the outside world, and therefore that made them really good test subjects for this. Ekman's results showed that these villagers could recognise all the facial expressions properly and correctly, proving universality, proving Darwin, mic drops all around. Later on, dozens of research teams would replicate this methodology and also the findings in studies all over the world. The methodology used was hailed as the gold standard for testing emotion recognition, and as Barrett terms it, the classical view of emotion, that emotions have an inbuilt fingerprint which is set, was widely accepted and even is still to this day. By the way, the methods used might be quite familiar to some people that have been through autism assessments. So, case closed. But if it's case closed, why the paradox? Basically, the problem is that despite the hundreds of studies showing that people can universally recognise facial expressions, lab tests on our physiology, on our autonomic nervous system, did not corroborate these findings. One of the more popular ways to look for physical fingerprints are facial EMG tests, which involve electrodes being placed all over your face while some scientist gets you all riled up and emotional. Barrett has this to say about those EMG tests.
As it turns out, facial EMG presents a serious challenge to the classical view of emotions. At best, facial EMG reveals that these movements distinguish pleasant versus unpleasant feeling. Even more damning, the facial movements recorded in these studies do not reliably match the posed photos created with the basic emotion method.
Interestingly, there are also inconsistencies when people studied babies. So think about it. If emotions are inbuilt from birth, and are grounded in genetics and survival, then babies should be prime examples of them, no? Well, apparently not. You see, while babies do make meaningful facial expressions, in no way do they correlate with these series of photographs that were created or with Darwin's categories either. Hence the paradox. Quick disclaimer, I'm not negging on Darwin. I don't want my mentions to be full of a load of angry rationalists, claiming that I'm dismissing the entire theory of evolution or something, because I'm really not. Barrett as well, she's very careful about this, far more careful than I've been. Yes, universality of facial expressions, probably not that sound. No, that doesn't mean we need to throw the evolution baby out with the facial expression bathwater. So I hope that's clear. This is not a creationist channel. Yeah. And in case you're in any doubt, the 4 biggest meta-analyses of all the studies done in the past decade on our autonomic nervous system and emotion found no evidence to support the idea of an ingrained emotional fingerprint. So what's going on? Why are field tests showing one thing, but then lab tests on our physiology are showing quite another? Well, according to Barrett, she says that when people are recognizing emotions in others, what they're mainly doing is picking up on the context of the situation. And this was the problem with the methodology used in the study of the Foray people in Papua New Guinea. The test subjects were given so much context about the emotions depicted in the photos that they were in actual fact just being primed for success. So when Barrett's team went to visit several tribal communities all over the world, they didn't give them any context. They just whacked out a few random photos of emotions and asked their test subjects to categorize them as they please, just as they see fit. What comes next might surprise you. Oh dear. So what they found was that without being primed and without being given a load of context, the test subjects were categorizing these pictures of emotions into quite varied categories. And there's a key lesson there that you can take from Barrett's work, and it's variation is the norm. Variation is the norm. Write it down. So one interesting example of cultures completely disagreeing about what an expression means is that the Maori people of Aotearoa, New Zealand, see the Western expression for fear as being of anger. So if you've ever seen a haka performed, you'll know that the wide-eyed, open-mouthed expression is one which is definitely intended to intimidate. So after completely destroying mainstream assumptions with facts and logic, Dr. Barrett and her team set out to solve the old paradox. Could she do it? Of course she bloody could. Woman's a queen. So what's an emotion then? Well, it's largely a social construct. Part 3. Wait, what? Yeah, that's right guys, emotions not even real. There. So, thanks for watching. Please like, don't forget to subscribe. You're too smart for that, aren't you? You know social constructs are real. I'm doing a devil's advocate. Emotions are very real, just like all social constructs are very real, like marriage or money or political offices or nation states. What Barrett means is that emotions don't physically exist within us. What exists in our bodies is affect. So that's how pleasant or in pain we're feeling, or how aroused or not we are, not like that. Our brains take this affect, which is produced by our body sending signals about its state, and it combines it with past experience and concepts to make the message, I'm anxious or I'm excited. You see, the actual physical differences between excited or anxious are really not there. You see, they both involve increased adrenaline, increased heart rate, shakes. The difference between anxiety and excitement comes from the situation in which it occurs. Barrett talks a lot about how different cultures have different words for emotions, and I mean, like, they have whole other emotional concepts which we might not have in English-speaking cultures. But also, some cultures have a different idea of what emotions actually are. So some cultures don't think that an emotion is something that happens inside you. Rather, it's an action, a behavior that happens between two or more people. Like, some cultures have loads of words for really nuanced emotions, while other cultures have fewer. Barrett also argues that without experience of the concept, of an emotional concept, one is literally unable to feel that emotion. So, like, if you'd never come across the concept of say guilt, you wouldn't feel guilt. This has to do with what is known as experiential blindness, and it's really easy to illustrate. Look at this. Your brain is likely trying to search for some past experience with which to make sense of this image. Now look. All that's needed to overcome experiential blindness, luckily, is some experience. We start to learn these emotional concepts and their corresponding facial expressions pretty much from birth, so it's no wonder that it seems really ingrained. But the truth is that if you've grown up in another culture with another set of emotional concepts, the emotions that you would feel for things would be different. Part 4. What about autism though? First, it's often said that as autistic people are rubbish at faces, then that means that they're clearly unempathetic or can't socialise. Except plenty of autistic people are social, and the idea that we're unempathetic is really quite unfounded and actually offensive. It seems that when neurotypical people claim to be able to spot an emotion just by looking, or even spot that someone is lying just by looking, what they're actually doing is guessing. Now, it's informed guessing, don't get me wrong, but it is still guessing. I would cautiously posit, very cautiously, that what's going on is more to do with the way that autistic people learn. See, it's quite common that we're better at learning things logically or academically rather than through osmosis. Think of social etiquette. It can often seem to autistic people that everyone else was just given a book on what to do at some point, and that if we had that book, then we might know what to do. It's the osmosis thing. Neurotypical people don't need to be told, they just pick it up. Neurotypical people are naturally endowed with the ability to learn these emotional concepts and their corresponding facial expressions through osmosis, but they are still learned. It's not the ability to recognize emotions that's just naturally ingrained in them, it's the ease at which they can learn through osmosis. It also just seems sometimes as though autistic brains don't necessarily prioritize linguistic concepts for ambiguous things when it comes to issuing predictions on what to do and how to behave. It's quite common for autistic people to just reject socially constructed categories on the basis that they don't seem logical to them. Gender roles and sexuality categories, for example. So far from us being unempathetic or just not able to do the thing what everyone else can naturally do, it's more to do with the way in which we learn. In the book, Dr. Barrett talks a lot about what she terms emotional granularity.
A skilled interior designer can look at 5 shades of blue and distinguish azure, cobalt, ultramarine, royal blue, and cyan. My husband, on the other hand, would call them all blue.
A designer isn't born with the natural ability to be able to tell royal blue from navy blue. They learn the difference. And so it seems to me that emotional granularity can be learned by anyone just through learning emotional vocabulary. So we can just logically and academically learn what the faces mean. Of course, I should say that it might still take some people longer to put the word with the context. There's this quite fun part of the book where Dr. Barrett shows that it's really easy to just make up your own emotional concept, and the one that she made up was chiplessness. So that's the feeling when you're eating a bag of chips, crisps, and you're eating a bag of crisps and you reach in and you find that you've already eaten them all. Devastating. Chiplessness. I thought it might be fun if we made up our own concepts for autistic emotions. So Sarah over at Agony Auti, she did something like this with her Kaneko video. There's link. So to Sarah, Kaneko represents the feeling that she gets when she hears a word or a phrase or something that just makes her we all know that feeling. So personally, I hate the feeling if my sleeve rolls up like that, or my shirt comes up and I can't adjust it for whatever reason. I hate it. It's so nasty. I can't. But there's so many clothes out there that are just made like that, and so I'm gonna call that feeling frabbish, because it's fabric and it feels rubbish. I'm feeling frabbish. So distracting. Blah. So yeah, let's do that. Put your suggestions in the comments and then we can have our own words for autistic emotions. And then when neurotypical people can't recognize them, we can be like, oh my God, you're so unempathetic. Okay, so what have we learned? Number 1, do not judge. You really never know what someone else is feeling. Number 2, don't believe people who say that they can tell what you're really feeling just by looking, or claim that they can spot liars just by looking, because they can't. Dr. Barrett actually expands on this in her TED Talk, which I'll link below. Number 3, emotions are not hardwired or universal. They are learned ways in which our brains make sense of affect. Number 4, the autistic people's difficulties with recognizing expressions has nothing to do with empathy and is likely more to do with learning styles. So this is the first in what will likely be quite a few videos analysing the implications of this. Don't worry, the whole channel is not just going to be about this book. I'm going to talk about other things too. But yeah, wide implications for classical philosophical presumptions, societal issues, politics. Oh yeah, we're going to get political. Political hot takes coming up. But yeah, I'm just really excited about this book at the minute. I'm reading it. Reading it for my dissertation at the minute. So that's why it's on my mind and I just really wanted to chat about this today. But yeah, that was the first ever successful filming of a video. It's the 3rd time I've attempted to film this, and something went wrong on every other attempt, and I even almost ditched the first half of this one because my hair was weird. I think it was successful. Yeah, first video in the bag. I really hope you found all of this as interesting as I did. I mean, if you're still there listening now, then I presume you did. And if you did, you know what you have to do. Please do like this video, that really helps. Comment below with your ideas for new autistic emotional concepts. And if you think that this kind of thing is something that you'd like to hear more of, then subscribe. And do press the bell icon, otherwise you won't get notified when I upload. Good job there, YouTube. You'll find links for all my socials and that down in the description. So give me a follow on your platform of choice. And I look forward to seeing some new concepts. Yeah, I did it. Did a video. Did the video. Ooh. I really hope to see you again next time.